I would like to welcome you all at our session. My name is Lukas Nachtigal. I am the head of the department for doctoral studies at the Rectorate of Charles University, and I, with my colleagues, would like to introduce you during our session, like the basic introduction to doctoral studies at Charles University from various aspects. As you can see, we'll go through various issues. My goal would be to introduce you to the topic of the organization of the study itself at our university, and then my colleagues and speakers will have their own agenda to introduce regarding the financial aspects and the possibilities of grants and financing your grants and topics of your thesis, and also the ethical aspects of your research, which is actually really, really important. Maybe I can start with my topic because it is an important one. First of all, don't worry, you just see the regulations and I don't want to lose you right in the beginning. My aim of my introduction is not to prepare you to become an expert in the legal issues of the university. My point is to show you just a framework of the basics of your study regulations, just raise your awareness about the issues. And as always, it's always better to tackle the issues in advance than to solve them afterwards. This is actually one of two recommendations from my part to you regarding to studies. First of all, ask. Ask not just about your research, which is of course an integral part of research itself. We need to be just curious and ask, but also be curious about the organizational study, especially in the start of it. Just if everything is clear and all instructions are clearly delivered to you. So this is my first advice. And the second one, be in the really close communication with your supervisor. The supervisor is the most important person during your studies, and his role is just not interchangeable. It's really very important to you. He's the guide of your studies and will introduce you to your future research and to your career. It's someone who will help you in your path. So it's like two main advices from my part. So I'm completely almost done, but we'll go more into details right now. First thing, if you just talk about the doctoral study, here are some numbers, just in order for you to know how many of you are in a doctoral study, how many students of doctoral study type we do have. So as you can see, there are almost 50,000 students at the Charles University right now, and 6,000, or almost 7, in fact, are students of type of doctoral study. So just some numbers. As you can see, each year we do enroll, or they do themselves enroll new applicants to the doctoral study programs. It's over 1,000. And around 500 applicants, or the students, they do, thank you, they do graduate each year, which is the aim and the whole purpose of our session, and to introduce you to the rules so you can one day go to our Magna Hall and graduate as well. And as you can see, I spoke about the supervisor. I will speak about the person and its role in your studies even further. But as you can see, we have almost 3,000 persons that are doing their job at the moment at the university. Now, as you can see, there are some basic rules, the most important ones. But don't worry, we will not even go through all of them. My point is to show you that just when we are speaking about the doctoral study, there are not so much rules you should be aware. However, you should be very well aware of those that apply to you directly. First of all, there is a section 47 of the Higher Education Act, but don't worry. If you just, in any case, you will just read it. It's a really short one, actually just 6 sentences, and it's just acknowledging that there is a doctoral study and there is a supervisor and the subjects are aboard, and it's really important that we do have them. The reason why it's so general is that it's up to each university to set the rules for themselves, so that's something that is just really basic. If we speak about the Charles University, then there is something called a Constitution of Charles University, which is a really important document of ours. But on the other hand, you will not see the doctoral study there either. There's something called Subject Area Board, which is actually a really important institution for you. It's a group of experts that oversight each study program you enrolled in. Each of your programs do have such a board, and you will come in close contact with such a board because the chair or head of this board will accept your proposals for individual study plan, your individual curricula, and also each year, at least once a year, your individual study plan will be assessed by this board. So it's really important persons for your studies, but again, a supervisor is the most important person for sure. What we do go through just in a minute is Article 10 of the Code of Study and Examination. Of course, the whole Code of Study Examination applies to you since you are our students of the Charles University. However, just this section and section 11, they do apply to doctoral study only. So we will go through this because the organization on the level of the university is specified there. And then we will go through Article 12 of the scholarship and bursary rules, because we will talk about the scholarship issue of doctoral study, which is also important for you. We have prepared also something that's called Doctoral Study Handbook. You can see it there, and you can go through yourself, browse it a little bit. It's something like a manual, actually. You can just take a look, because we try to summarize the role of each person, each role during the doctoral study, which means that if you go there, you will see there are several chapters, and they are called by several persons. So there are like rules and rights and obligations of a student, of a supervisor, of the chair of this subject area board, even of a dean, which means what they do regarding the doctoral study. We try to make it simple and short in order to be really straightforward, so it's something helpful for you. Even more information you can see on our website, of course in English as well, and there are all materials we are going to talk about and even more. We're trying to introduce there new events, like this one, or more activities like especially courses outside your individual study plan in order to help you to fulfill this individual curricula. So we can jump straight in. This is the Article 10 of Code of Study and Examination. It's a long one. It's several slides ahead. This one is just a start, but what can be summarized from this point is that since you're studying a doctoral study at Charles University, no subject of yours have credits, ECTS credits. It applies for bachelor and masters, but no courses regarding the doctoral study have such credits. Your study will not be measured or assessed by credits. In the past, several faculties used this system, but we decided as the university that such a system is not valued to the doctoral study, since we just valued you as young researchers, and also your study, the doctoral study type, is just vastly different from the previous type of study, which means that you are assessed on another merits, another basis. We will talk about this shortly. This is just one thing to talk about. Also, as you can see in other parts of this article, and it's also good to be aware, you are not measured on the basics, like on the quality, let's say, or I mean on the level of achievements, let's say. What I want to say is that during the assessments of your study, the progress is measured. That's what's important. If you just continue your studies and what you just strive to achieve in your individual study plan, which will go just in a minute, that is fulfilled. This is really important during the assessment of the subject area board, and that's something that you should be aware. So this is just the basics, but what's really important is this part number 6. It's even longer, so it will be on the slide as well. Here you can see, I hope you can see it, but for sure you will get all this information also after the end of the sessions to all registered students. So you will get it on your mail, so you can browse it even afterwards. So what you can see in this section is just the basics of the organization of doctoral study itself. So you are new students in the doctoral study, which means that you were asked, or you will be asked in a really short future, to prepare a draft of your individual study plan or your individual curricula. That is something that basically doesn't exist in a previous type of studies, but it does exist in this type of study. The reason is that there are no other plans or other like schedule how to fulfill your studies, because as the name itself suggests, each study is highly individual. Of course, there are some sets of requirements or duties, let's say, you need to fulfill. Their number and their nature comes out of the accreditation of each program. So there are like some common things each of you need to fulfill based on a program of your choosing, on the program when you are enrolled. However, then it's up to you with your supervisor, so again, really important person in your study, to discuss when and in what concrete form are you going to fulfill this set of duties you are about to do. Of course, the most important part of your individual study plan, your individual curricula, is preparation of your thesis. There's one piece of advice from our experience. It's really good to be really concrete or more concrete in this individual study plan in your preparation of your study. This individual study plan I am talking about is something that is always prepared in the study information system. Everything is an electronic system online. And you always plan based on the years of your study, which means that you have some duty to fulfill, but it's up to you. Of course, there may be some restrictions from the faculty and the accreditation, but basically speaking in general, you can decide in which year are you going to fulfill the duty. Again, there can be some restrictions. The faculty are, of course, open to do so. But in general, the idea is that within the first 2 months in your study, you will prepare this plan of your study for the standard period of study. At Charles University, most programs are for 4 years. The standard period of study is for 4 years. In some cases, it's 3 years, but basically 90% of programs are for 4 years, which means that your study plan is going to be prepared for 4 years, and then you will see what kind of duty are going to fulfill in each year. So this is just the basic idea. We will go shortly afterwards to the next part, which is the assessment of such a plan. But for the time being, this is the essential, actually. You will prepare the draft, then you will, in the study information system, just postpone it or give it to your supervisor. Again, this person has a strong sayings what is relevant and what not in your study plan, because it's the closest person to your studies, and he can or she can edit this plan as well. And then this person will forward it to the chair of subject area board, this group of experts we talked about previously. And then will set if this plan is acceptable, they can edit it as well. And once it's accepted, it becomes binding for your studies. Then don't worry, it's really good to know and be aware that of course there can be some changes in your study plan as your study moves forward. It's only logical because just during your research and your studies you can just evolve or just find new ideas, and just your plan can change. There can be basic changes, like for example you will change some course, or just you will fulfill the course you were about to take or change it with some else. So of course it's acceptable based on a communication with your supervisor. And such changes can be done. Of course, there can be more serious changes or more relevant changes to your topic of your dissertation. Sometimes some students will just find new information or something interesting during their research, and they want to focus on that topic. Then it's good to be aware that you are enrolled in certain study programs, and their subject area boards are experts in certain fields. If you go outside the field in your idea how to research should continue, then your head of subject area board, it is their responsibility with a supervisor as well to say it is of course okay to do so, but since you are going outside our field of expertise, then you should reconsider the fact that you can, of course, follow this path, but you need to enroll to another program. In this point, I would like to raise awareness that there is no such a thing how to change a program once you're studying. You can go apply for another program, go through the process of application, and once you are accepted to this new program, you can, again, with your supervisor, you can have the same person, or you can just have another one based on the various topics or how the things goes. And you can apply for the subject area board to some of your duties that were fulfilled in your previous study to be accepted in this new study. It's not binding, of course. It's, again, always up to the decision of this subject area board if the duties from the previous study is relevant, but it's an option. And also, just I think it's an important issue to be aware that if you just go through your research outside this field of expertise, then you might be asked to change the program. Or you just move another direction, stay within this field of expertise. It's up to you. Again, the doctoral study is highly individual. We know that. There is no problem with it. But just good to be aware of the options. How to edit this or change this individual study plan? Normally, it takes place once a year, once you're assessed. I will go to this topic in a few seconds. But it, again, happens in this study information system. So within the 2-month period, your individual study plan will be prepared and you're ready to go. And after 1 year, you will be assessed. And you will be, again, your individual study plan will be open to editing, and you will just say, I fulfilled these duties during this first year, I should, or I didn't fulfill them for some reason. You just give these reasons to the supervisor and the subject area board, and it continues. So if there are some duties you just come up, or just some options you would like to give to your individual study plan, that there's an option to just edit it inside your individual study plan once you're assessed. That's the basic thing how things goes. It's also really straightforward because everyone just see their duties. I return a little bit to the previous idea I mentioned, that it's really good to be concrete with your duties, especially regarding the thesis. I can imagine that this advice is maybe hard to accept because, on the other hand, if you are really concrete, then it can be maybe not really handy for you. But the other thing is true. If you are concrete with your thesis, especially with your thesis, but with other duties as well in this binding document of yours, then it's advantage actually for you, but as well as for the others, like supervisor and the head of subject area board, because everyone is on the same board, everyone knows what's going to happen. So I really recommend this to you, especially regarding the thesis, because of course there's a duty at the end of standard length of study to just have this prepared and everything goes smoothly. But normally it's not such smooth, and it's really good to just have some idea and how this process will go. To be concrete, it's really good idea to, for example, during the first year of a study, to say, I will just make some research on this topic or prepare a short resume. It's really up to you. You have vastly different study programs, so it's hard to not speak in general. But you should just be aware about this fact. I would really recommend it. So there's one thing. I'm just looking on other issues. Yeah, it's always the thing about this 2-month period I mentioned. Since you are fresh in the study programs, you don't have this individual study plan yet. However, in this document of ours, in this Code of Study Examination, you are obliged with your supervisor to prepare this draft of individual study plan and give it to the subject area board for accepting. It's actually the first rule or duty of yours in this study. If you fail to do so, then it can be the reason for termination of the study. Because, and it's really important, since you are not in the master's or bachelor study levels, then there needs to be some schedule of your study, and that's exactly this in your study plan. So there needs to be something how to assess if you're actually studying. That's the reason for this first rule, let's say. After the individual study plan is accepted, then it becomes the binding document and the first thing to assess. The last thing to mention, and I think it's on the next part of this point 6, is about the supervisor. Sometimes it can happen, hopefully not for you, but there can be changing of supervisors for any reason. You can just feel that the relationship is not working, or you are going outside the expertise of the current supervisor, so the change can be made. You can apply for changing of the supervisor. It's actually nothing bad. It can just happen. But in the case there is no person that will replace the current supervisor, then the head of this subject area board I talked about will resume its role, or his or her role, and be your supervisor at least for a period before the new supervisor will be found. Just again, for you to be aware, because each student, is a golden rule of doctoral study, needs to have its own supervisor. It's really important. Such a role is really unacceptable to not have in your studies. And then we go to this point number 8, which is again important because it's about the assessment of your studies. The idea behind this is that at least once a year, your individual study plan we talked about will be assessed by the subject area board and the supervisor, which means that faculty will just say to you, hey, just look at your individual study plan in this study information system and edit it. Let us know what you have done during this first year of your study, or during this last period you're about to be assessed. And we will just take a look if everything goes smoothly. They will take a look at it, and they will just say, everything goes great, you have this A, or something could be improved, you have B, but do continue. But if they just say nothing happened during this last year, we are really sad, and you have number C, which means that your study is going to be terminated. This is how it goes. There's no more letters or no more ideas behind it. They are going to assess if you continue with your studies. They can sometimes say, you've done some of the work, but we feel that you could work harder, which means that you didn't fulfill really well, and they are just thinking about the C letter. But they say, we will give you this B letter, but we will assess you sooner than the next year. Normally they will say there's some duty that was really, it should have been done sooner, which means that we will assess you within 3 months period, for example. And you are going to be assessed again with the same logic as I introduced earlier. And then they will just come up to some decision if they are going to give you the B or A or, unfortunately, the C. The point of mine was that you can be assessed more than just once a year, individually, based on your results during your studies. This, again, good to be aware of. There is one more person I didn't mention, actually 2 roles that are important during your studies. First is the role of consultant. It's a person that can help you with some issues regarding your study, research-wise. Such a person can be appointed to you. Actually, in some cases, it can be more than just one. It's an expert in his or her field that can help you with your research. Such a person of consultant will become important to you. They are in your study information system mentioned, but they do not play such a huge role as a supervisor, and they do not have a saying, let's say, in this individual study plan, because such experts are there for their expertise. Then one role you can use, and the second one is the head of the unit are going to do your research. Several faculties last year, they introduced this role. It's not binding. Most of you will not count it during your individual study plan, but it can happen. What can happen is that the faculty feels that this head of the unit you are going to do your research should have a strong saying in your individual study plan and your assessment, which means that they will give them the role I was describing regarding the supervisor in your individual study plan. In such a case, you will be, of course, you will know about this in this procedure. After the supervisor will revise your proposal for individual study plan or your assessment, he or she will give this proposal to this head of unit where you're going to do your, or you're doing your research. And then such a person will also give their recommendations and opinion and feedback, and then give it to the subject area board. So in some study programs that can happen, it's of course open to do so. So just, again, just to be aware. Yeah. So we talk about a lot of things about the organization of study. These are the basics. This is something that's said by the university and it's common to all of you. But each faculty, of course, can just introduce more duties or be more concrete regarding your individual study plan or other issues regarding your study. You'll be, of course, introduced to those roles, especially when you're starting to do your proposal for individual study plan. But just for you to know, there are more rules to know, but they are faculty-based, not on the university level, because these are just the basics. Of course, as I mentioned, in this Code of Study examination, there are more rules regarding studying at Charles University, but these are the rules regarding just the doctoral study itself. So these are just rules to be aware of. The last section is this 11 point. It's about changing the form of your study. I mentioned previously that you cannot change the program, just change a program of yours as you would like, but you can change the form of study. You can change from present form to the distant form of study. If you're changing from the distant form to present form during the standard period of study, then there should be like a recommendation from your supervisor and the subject area board. Because of course, not just the studying, but also the situation of each of us is different and individual. But there should be recommendations if you're changing in this present form, because there are other issues, for example, regarding this scholarship bursary that should be taken into consideration. That's the reason why they have to have their saying in it. So that was about the basic rules, and now we come to this scholarship issue. So at Charles University, all students during the standard length of study will receive monthly scholarship. The base level of this scholarship is 10,500 Czech crowns. This is paid each month during the standard length of study, which is, as I said, 3 or 4 years. It can be, of course, higher, but it depends on the faculty if there are other rules regarding to it. This is something you can count on in this basic level you will receive, regardless of the language, actually. It's good to mention because, especially previously, it was not really common on all Czech universities that the students of the doctoral study type in foreign language will receive the scholarship. But the Charles University, for a long period of time, are all students of doctoral study type. So everyone will get the scholarship, this basic level for sure. The one thing that can higher up your bursary is that if you go to successfully through study examination, and then it goes for sure afterwards each month up to more than 2,000 Czech crowns, which means 12,500 Czech crowns monthly, once you pass the doctoral examination. Then there can be more rules like that, not just examination, but it's up to faculty to set such a rule and just evaluate you accordingly, because it's up to each faculty to deal with their funding. What's also important to know, this section 5, is that the subject area board, once they feel that you can you put more effort into your studies, let's say, and they award you during your assessment with a B, then they can also just take up to 50% of your bursary till the next period of the assessment. They don't have to, but they can, if they just feel it's appropriate. So again, good to be aware of such an option. So I just prepared a really short summary what we talked about. I think there are basically all the points I wanted to mention. So I would like again to stress there's two main advices of mine. Just don't be afraid to ask of anyone anything regarding research, but also the organization of study. We have really nice cooperation with my colleagues from each faculty, the departments for research or for study. So they will be helpful to you. I believe that they are actually in your close cooperation with you, there should be or are or going to be, regarding the preparation of your individual study plan, which is, as we mentioned, essential for you during the studies at the Charles University. And as we mentioned, you can change it, adjust it, because everything just go through involvement. These rules are not here to be like strict for you or just making things hard for you, but they are just the basics, and based on them you can just do your research and continue your thesis. So this is just the basic. I wanted to just describe it to you, and I have one more thing to introduce it, because we do not, at our department, just the rules, let's say. We are trying also to come up with other things in order to help you during your studies. One of such things is a project called Doctoral Study Hub, which you can also find information on our website I introduced earlier. The idea is that we're trying at the level of the university, of the rectorate, to introduce more courses, soft skills courses, transversal courses to you that are relevant to your studies. Most of them are about the excellence of research. By that I mean like skills, like presentation skills, or academic writing, or other issues like that. Part of such a portfolio also the pedagogical skills, because at least some of you are going to have in your study plan also taking part in lectures and helping others to the subjects of your interest. So there's also the part of this portfolio, and if you just go to this website, I'm going to introduce it with all my colleagues. So the number of these courses are going up each year or each semester, let's say. And this is important to know. We're trying to introduce more subjects each year in English as well. And of course, you do know that all our faculties do introduce courses like that at the level of each faculty, but there are more options at the university level as well, and we are trying to raise awareness about this option. So the last thing is Science Slam. There's actually a really great and possible the contest, how to show your skills and showmanship regarding your research. Just go to the website and you will see the basic information and rules, and it's really actually exciting and interesting if you get going to use your skills and imagination during your research. So I really like to thank you for your attention. I hope just summarize it briefly, and just don't worry about the rules. It's but be aware of them. That's actually basically the message of mine at the end. So you can raise any questions right now, or you can just ask later, or just send an email. We can work everything accordingly. So are there any questions now? I can answer them. But it seems that I was able somehow to introduce it properly. So it's great. And then I will give floor to another speaker. Yeah.
I do have one question.
Yes.
So part of the money I get for my study is not paid as a grant, but as a salary. How exactly does that fit into this entire story?
Actually, it's not interconnected. You will just receive monthly a scholarship, which is another and different type of funding. It's not like a salary. It's something beside that. So you will all this will find their way to account, but this is something that goes through various and different procedure than a salary. I don't know if I introduced you properly. You can be more specific if you like.
I don't know exactly how it works.
Of course. But then it's really important how you were introduced to the fact you are going to have some salary. I can imagine you are going to be part of some research, something like that. That is highly possible. In such a case, you will get your salary based on your activities outside the study, but based on your study and your being a student of Charles University, you will receive this scholarship. Okay, so if there are no more questions, then I will give floor to another speaker. Again, thank you for your attention. Good luck with your studies.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Tomáš Weiss. I'm Associate Professor at the Faculty of Social Sciences of the Charles University. I used to be a PhD student once, so that's probably why I've been asked to give this sort of pep talk to you, how to survive a PhD program. The funny thing is that this is my third time I'm giving this pep talk, if I'm not mistaken, so I think it is probably the last but one time, because then they will realize, the people who invite me here, that it hasn't helped anybody, because the people will, you know, start finishing their studies and they will say, yeah, the pep talk, that didn't really work, sorry. So I'm really enjoying to be here. I would like to congratulate you to being accepted to the PhD program, to take the decision to actually engage in a PhD program. I think a time spent during a PhD is a nice time. And I understand that it might seem and feel slightly overwhelming at the moment. And I'm not just referring to Lukasz's presentation about the rules, but also I think many of you have moved to a different city or a country. You start working with new people. All the rules, or the doors that you have no idea what's behind them. That's scary, but I would like to encourage you that this is actually one of the best times of your life, I think, and especially the time that you really have time. Even though you might not feel like that, you might feel that you really have too many obligations at once. I can assure you that it will only get worse once you finish your PhD program, and I think that you need to enjoy the time and all the time that you have. You should use it to read, to explore, to ask new questions, to read again. You would be surprised how much less time you are going to have to read once you finish. I can't overstate that, I guess. And I think that there will be time during your PhD studies when you are going to feel really down, and when you'll feel what the academic Twitter usually calls the imposter syndrome. Believing that you've engaged in something where you just don't belong, and you are worse than all the others, and you've just, you know, sliced a too big a piece to chew. Don't worry, we've all been there, some of us many times. You just need to get going, and it will just flow away, right? You are not unique in that sense. Everybody goes through that. And it is normal, and I think it is actually an integral part of the research process, to feel that you just don't know anything and you can't find out anything, any time, ever. That, I think, means that you are doing good research, or that you've hit a deadlock and you should leave. But most of the time, it's because you really are doing research, and research means exploring, you know, places that nobody has gone before. So it's obvious that you might get lost on the way, and you would need time to find yourself again and find the right track. Don't believe the academic networks, right? Especially the academic Twitter or the academic Facebook. It's good to observe. It's good to follow. It's a good source of information, but don't believe it. Don't believe the upbeat enthusiasm that you encounter there. You know, when people feel down, they don't really publish it very often. They only publish that they got a new grant, that they got a new publication, that their results are really nice. They will never bad results and rejections and failed grant applications. Be aware of the fact that all of them have gone through that. They just don't publish it. So there is a huge bias towards success. And you can't compare yourself with the academic Twitter, right? That's the good place, which shows only the 10% of the life of all the researchers. So don't worry and don't be too scared that everybody else is better than you. It's not true, right? So what should you do during the PhD program? I think you should use the time and learn new things. And obviously you will be learning new things in your field of research. But I think you should look broadly and learn just new things. Many of them will not be directly related, but you will now have the time to actually learn new stuff. So look around, engage in projects, engage in whatever comes your way. I think it makes sense because it will enrich you, it will enrich you personally, it will enrich you as a person, it will enrich your research when you are not just focused on a single tiny thing you are writing about, but you learn about the context and you look across the borders to other disciplines, to other areas. And it will help your career afterwards. Because you will have something in addition to what all the others will have that just spend focused on a single issue. So do the reading, read a lot, attend events that come your way, ask questions, don't be afraid to ask questions, meet new people. At the university, beyond the university, internationally, at conferences, attend conferences. It helps you a lot. It will help you get criticism of your research from outside your workplace. So there will be different perspectives of what you are doing, and these are very, very helpful. You will be able to link to your peers. People at conferences who are your age will be around the whole life of yours, the whole career of yours. You will meet them at various stages. So learn who they are, meet them, make friends among them, because you never know. You might find yourself in a common project with them, in a common research. And don't be shy. Again, it might seem most of you probably just finished your master's studies somewhere, you were considered students, you are still considered PhD students, but in fact you are early career researchers. And you will be considered one. So don't be shy, talk to people even if they are professors, even if they are much older than you are, even if they are much more experienced than you are. They are there to meet you, to talk to you. They consider you their peers, maybe younger, but still peers, because you are as much researchers as they are. So don't be afraid, don't really observe any sort of hierarchical relations. You are there to ask questions, you are there to learn, so make use of that. Publish. It might be that some of you are not asked to publish during your PhD studies, that you are only asked to write a PhD thesis, which is fine. The better it gets, probably. But if you have an opportunity to publish an article, a chapter, a study, whatever, I think go for it. It will help you to learn how that works, how the publishing business actually works, what it means, how to navigate through peer review, how to communicate with editors, how to defend your research and your writing against reviewers and criticism. And then later on, it will help you to have, when you will have had the experience with publishing, when you look for future career opportunities. Aim high when you publish, and be happy for all sort of feedback. Don't be afraid to be rejected. Everybody gets rejected. I don't think there's a single article that doesn't get rejected at least once. If it isn't rejected, that means that the author didn't aim high enough, right? That they simply went for a very, very easy option. So go high, aim for a good journal, and when you get criticism there, and when you get rejected, make use of the criticism to improve the paper, and then try again. It is not a problem. Ask around what it all means. Your supervisor obviously will help you, your colleagues will help you, they probably have published already, they know how to read a review, what to defend yourself against, what not to defend yourself against. So ask for help if you are unsure what all of that means. And don't be afraid if you get really harsh criticism with the decision revise and resubmit, go and buy a beer or a drink, because that's success, right? Even though it doesn't sound like, revise and resubmit is something when you really have done very, very well. So it might be confusing, but I'm quite sure that, that you will learn how to navigate that. If you have the opportunity, teach. Maybe not too much. You are still here to do some research, right? But if you have the opportunity, if somebody offers that to you, try to offer a course or a seminar in your field of specialization. I think it is a good experience, even if it takes your time from the research. It is a sort of benign form of criticism. You can test your ideas on the students. They will be very happy for that. They will be very happy to tear your ideas apart. You know how students are. But it will be in a controlled environment with the students, and it will improve your thinking about your topic. And it obviously, if you want to stay in academia afterwards, it will help. It will help you when you start looking for a job, if you have some sort of teaching experience. Get involved in grants. Some of you maybe already are by default, because you do your PhD program in a workplace which has got a grant and partially funds your studies, for example. But do involved in your supervisor's grants, or just apply for your grants. There is the grant agency of the Charles University, which offers funding to PhD students, so apply for that. Again, it is not only additional money, which is always nice, but it is also the experience with applying for a grant, with running a grant, with learning how the grant administration works, how the grant language works. It is a very specific form of speak that you need to use when you apply for money, especially research money. So learn that. You've got the opportunity to do that, and again, this is something that will pay off afterwards. But in the end, you will use all these opportunities, and in the end you will need to sit down and do the writing. Because after all, that's the main reason why you are doing your PhD research, to do the actual research and write down the thesis. So whatever you do, don't forget that in the end, you need to book the time and do the actual research and the writing. I'm quite sure that you will enjoy that you will have a great time doing that, whether it is 3 years or 4 years, or whether you get distracted too much and it takes you a bit more. All of that may happen, but I wish you good luck and good fun. Thanks a lot.
Good afternoon to all of you. My name is Pavel Senderak, as you can also see on the slide. I come to represent what we have available for you as PhD students at the Central Research Support Office of Charles University. This is very much an overview of the opportunities that are available to you. I will not go very deep in either of the parts. The first part focuses on the on grant opportunities or other ways of helping you fund your study by doing research within projects that are based on international cooperations, and the other part is then focusing on the opportunities that you have available at Charles University itself. Here the first part relating to the international collaborations. The one big priority of Charles University in these years, it's been already more than 3 years, is Alliance for EU+. It's an alliance formed by 6 universities at this time. Besides Charles University, there is a Sorbonne University, Heidelberg University, Copenhagen University, Milan University, and Warsaw University. Together, we've been working for 3 years in developing innovations in education and also some innovations relating to for example, mobilities and the ways to cooperate beyond the traditional schemes. So this is a very brief introduction to the 4EU Plus work and what is available. Currently, maybe I just start with that. There are 2 events that are being organized in Paris in the coming months. And also, you may check the website, that you can already see a link to it. There is currently a call, open call to a project called Urban Health Case Challenge, and some of you might find it of interest, so check out the website. In broader terms of what 4EU Plus has been doing, we are working to organize student conferences. They are going to be usually somewhat thematic, so they would not be for a general audience. They would be more specific in some terms. What has been developed, and currently we have about 60 plus of such 4EU Plus courses that are developed by either all 6 of those institutions or by at least 3 of them, and then offering the possibilities to learn in a new way and also in a joint way to students of these universities that are developing such activities. There is a specific mention of in some areas. It is always specific to the field or to the way of looking at things. Now, we have started with innovations that are currently being somewhat mainstreamed within the new Erasmus Plus program, and these are physical mobilities, which are now also available in a more short-term format. They are not going to be the classical 3 months mobilities for those of you who are familiar with the Erasmus Exchange. Now, also partly due to COVID, but also partly due to our own work program, we've developed options for blended and virtual mobilities as such, in which case it does not have to be only one partner institution, but it can be multiple institutions at the same time as part of the educational activity. Cultural, sports, and leisure activities. Well, in fact, the events that I mentioned in Paris are focused on entrepreneurship and on working with startups and how to translate what you know into business ideas. There are also other specific opportunities for students and young researchers, but most likely you are going to hear about them either from your faculty or department or on the website. Please just keep in touch. You can follow the website. You can follow the social media if you prefer that. Now I come to the more established opportunities that are available. The first one is organized or co-organized by the Czech Ministry of Education. In our case, these collaborations are based on bilateral agreements between the governments of the Czech government and then a government of a specific country that is named. Currently, these exchanges, this mobility program is focused on making joint proposals with colleagues and at the same time submitting them from this other country, where each ministry would finance the part of the team that falls into that country which is applying. So currently it is Czech Republic and Argentina, France, Germany, Poland, Austria, Greece, Slovakia, Slovenia, And newly, there is also Donau regional cooperation possibility, which is now going a little bit beyond bilateral to multilateral format. You can, I should mention, there are links across all the slides, so I don't overwhelm you with information, and it's better than to open what you might be interested in and check out the details. Now, another option that is available to you, especially in our region, is the so-called Visegrad Fund. In this case, I would advise, based on your interest and what you might be, Visegrad countries are Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, and Hungary. So this is the predominant focus of this fund. And if you should have any interest in investigating some options, visit the website and just follow the menu. It's very interactive, and it's the best way to really understand the scope of this program. Now, we have entered in 2021 into a new programming period of the European Commission. So now we have two framework programs, one focused on education and another one focused on research and innovation. Both of these were launched in 2021, and they will last for 7 years until 2027. I did already mention that we had some innovations in our 4EU Plus Alliance in terms of mobility options. Now these are mainstreamed into the Erasmus Plus program itself. Now the study stays that used to be limited by 3 months at minimum are limited by 2 months. So now you could go study abroad for 2 to 12 months. You can do traineeship 2 to 12 months. The innovation here is that there might be intensive blended programs. You can see a little description over there, where most of the part you are really connecting online and studying online, and only you combine it with a shorter term physical mobility to one institution or another. It is practical for students who might be more limited in terms of travel time or the time that they can spend abroad. Now, I will also mention that there are also innovations in terms of the short-term and long-term mobilities. Now also, there is a potential to go for a longer-term mobility than is the 12 months available. But still, let's wait for more of the instructions and some specific offer that might come to you. There are also more opportunities for virtual and blended beyond the one that is just mentioned, the intensive blended programs. Now, I also come to the part which is so-called Key Action 2 and Key Action 3 in Erasmus+. These are usually projects which are applied for in a consortium, and your faculty or your department might be engaged in just one such project. And they might be looking for PhD students to help out with part of the work, with the research parts, or any other part that could be needed for this project. In the current Erasmus program, now these are divided between so-called cooperation partnerships, which are fairly large, then small-scale partnership, alliances for innovation, Jean Monnet Actions, which is already KA3, Key Action 3, and then also there is not-for-profit European sport events. This is the least demanded part of the whole Erasmus program, and there is always money left. So if you would have some good idea how to organize a non-profit sport event, you are welcome to apply. You are likely to be successful in this application. Now I come to the second framework program. This one is called Horizon Europe. Horizon Europe is once again more about the consortia of universities applying. It does not have to be universities only. There can also be businesses or NGOs or maybe even some governmental bodies, let's say. Horizon Europe is covering a very wide spectrum of topics that are currently considered a priority by the European member states, EU member states, or the European Commission. In this sense, I would only mention that these are definitely like the step up in terms of applying for projects. I will also go to the final stage of applying within Horizon Europe. Importantly, there are still projects that are run at Charles University, once again at your faculty or your department, that were still funded within the previous framework program, which ended, the last goals were out precisely in 2020. So this might be also something that may come up to you as an opportunity. Now, going into more detail on a set of actions which are included in Horizon Europe. These are called Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions, and what could be the most interesting to you as an individual are the doctoral networks and the postdoctoral fellowships, which are fairly popular. There are also other options, but these ones would again be applied through the faculty or a bigger unit, not an individual. You can see more about these actions. Also, there was an info day on Horizon Europe. I just put in a link. It might be easier to digest the complexity of the framework program in this way. Now, I promised that I will come to the peak of it, and this is the peak, European Research Council grants. These are, well, let's say there is still some way to go for you since you are just starting your doctoral studies. As you can see, there are multiple options to choose from. What is important to say is that if you get an ERC grant, your name will be recognized in Europe at the least and beyond, most likely. These options that are currently available are the so-called starting grants, which are where you are eligible to apply 2 to 7 years since ending your PhD, so still some way to go. Consolidator grants, 7 to 12. Advanced grants are still beyond. This is for those who already got one ERC before. And then this is starting in 2022, our so-called ERC synergy grants. And just at a discussion that we had within the 4U Plus Alliance, there was a mention of this, that it could be a worthy target for our alliance to look into a possible synergy grant in ERC. Now, where to look for advice and support? At Charles University, you can get in touch with UK Point, career counseling, individual coaching. Then to the department that I'm coming from, Department of Science and Research in the English translation of the full title in Czech language. And then the unit that I actually represent as part of the Research and Support Office. It's so-called European Center, where we focus on international cooperation in science and research more generally, and also specifically in terms of our alliance. And at the same time, we are supporting applicants with project applications. Sometimes that support is needed more at the faculty level, sometimes it's more needed at the rectorate level. So it depends then on the specific scheme that you would want to apply for. Among the external resources, I may mention Euraccess, which might be helpful for collecting some information, as well as Institute of Sociology of the Czech Academy of Sciences. You can check out these links if you find the information helpful. Now I come to introduce the projects and programs that are run by Charles University. My colleague has created this rather easy overview of what is available. You can just check it out. Also, there is a further scheme somewhat later on. You can check out what might be of interest to you. We do not expect you to apply in the next weeks, but it's good for you to get some basic orientation where you might be asking for more information, what might be of bigger interest to you than something else. No, so now I will just go through some of these programs. The previous speaker, Mr. Weiss, has already mentioned the Charles University Grant Agency, supporting research of Master and Master of Science and PhD students. The projects are between 1 to 3 years. And this support allows you to work both on your thesis and also to travel for research purposes abroad. Now, there is a so-called specific academic research projects competition. Once again, supporting the research of Master of Science and PhD students. Principal investigator, in this case, is academic staff member, and the project period is 3 years. All of these programs renew, so even though you see some older dates, it does not mean that it would not be renewed further. Another option is a so-called Primus research program. In here, these are projects for 4 years, and probably I don't need to go through the details. You may check it out in the application, just not to keep you overwhelmed with the information. Now, another option are so-called university research centers, which are focused on junior teams with a coordinator. These are projects that are lasting for 6 years. Currently, we are having about 27 such centers at Charles University. Another option is so-called progress programs, and since 2022, these programs will be called Cooperatio, in the Latin version of the term. These are 5-year programs currently running from 2017 until this year, and then there will be the renewal with a new name. Once again, this is targeted at Master of Science and PhD students, and to some extent also bachelor students, but that's not for you now. Now, this is also an overview with, to give maybe a better overview rather than the information across the slides. You can check it out once you have the presentation available. Now, finally, the contact. I already did mention a contact to our department at the central level, Charles University Research Support Office. And also, and importantly, and probably this should be the first choice, try to get in touch with the responsible person for either of those programs at your faculty, because they might be better aware of the options or of the constraints that you might be facing as a doctoral student at that particular place. So usually these colleagues will be part of a research or grant department at each of the faculties. Thank you for your attention. Perhaps if you have a question at this stage, or you can also send a question to some of those contacts that were mentioned. Your choice. All right, no question.
So, good afternoon to all of you. And thank you for coming today. I think that I can take the respirator down, yes. To be more understandable. So, the last topic what we should do today in the presentation mode is the topic of the academic and research integrity. The motto of this presentation and the whole academic and research integrity, how we want to work with it at our university, is that the prevention is better than the restriction and sanction. So try to imagine that this is the first way how we want to inform you about the importance of the topic. Therefore, it's also the part of this welcome day for you at the university, but of course the information is only some introduction. Yes, and at the very end of the presentation there will be, for example, some links for more interesting documents, or for example on the MOOC course that you can join if you want to come deeper in the whole topic. This presentation I've prepared with a colleague of mine, Vratislav Dovořák, the head of the International Relationships Department. So what we will do today, I will divide the presentation to 3 basic parts. The first, we will speak basically about the documents that are setting the rules. We commonly call them the codes of ethics. Then we will briefly speak about the organs that work with these codes, and also that assess the violations, the possible violations against these codes. And then at the very end, I will briefly mention the 2 quite common examples of the violation of the academic integrity, and that's the plagiarism and the contract cheating topic. Of course, if you have any questions for these very important topics, I am ready for answer those questions sent by the YouTube channel or here present in the room. But first of all, why we should discuss about these topics, why we should mention them. So for some of you, the environment can be quite new, yes, but I can tell you that the environment you are right now entering is quite complex environment with many members that are inside. The members have different positions there. Some of them are students of different degrees. Some of them are members of the academic staff, also at several degrees. Some of are, for example, the leaders of the department, leaders of some laboratory. Some are the usual workers at the Department of Laboratory. And also we have there a very big group of non-academic staff. And of course, these members, they have their relationships one to each other. And we need to have the internal rules and internal principles how we should work together, yes. And the knowledge of these rules is for us very important. So if we know them and if we behave according to them, then the organism, the academic community can live properly, yes, and we all are happy living there. And also we are much more trustful for the society where our organism is, of course, living inside. So, as I've already mentioned, the rules must be written somewhere, yes, and these documents are called the codes of ethics, yes. In these codes of ethics, you can find the definition of the honest, or you can say acceptable behavior, and also you can read there what is forbidden, yes, so it can be positive or negative definition. And to know what is acceptable and what is unacceptable is, of course, the preventive mechanism how to avoid the misconduct or simply the misunderstanding. We are very aware of the fact that there are some violations intentional and some violations can be unintentional. If you decide to do something really bad, for example, if you decide to plagiarize or publish the article in a very bad journal, of course, if you do it intentionally, we can't do anything against it. We only then have to put a sanction on you. But what we want to prevent is to do the unintentional violations. And therefore, really, you should know that as a member of the academic community, you should read these documents. If you have any questions, you can ask us what is the real meaning of the words written there, and via this you or we together can prevent the unintentional violations. So what's the situation with these documents at the Charles University? So we have the first, we had the first version of the Charles University Code of Ethics from the year 2013, and it was issued as the joint statement of the Academic Senate, the Scientific Council, and the Rector. Why I'm mentioning all these three bodies is due to the fact that they are the highest bodies of the whole university, and they made the joint statement what is really good and what is really bad at the university. So via this joint statement, you can understand that this is really something what all of us should know, even when you are only true researcher, only true teacher, or if you are a student, or if you are a combination of all these, yes? With this Code of Ethics was also established the University Ethics Committee that I will briefly describe in the second part. And right now, after this year, 2013, there were two updates of the Codes of Ethics. The last update was done in year 2018, and in the presentation, we provide you with the link to the actual version of the Code of Ethics, or simply you can find it on the university website. If I should briefly now mention the Code of Ethics of Charles University, it consists of five main parts. The first is the opening, the preamble. Then you have the three core parts, the common principles, the principles in the educational activities, and the last core part is the principles in scientific, artistic, and creative activities. And the last part is dedicated to the ethics committee, yes, how it should work, basically. So now briefly to the three core parts that I've mentioned. So the first part speaks about the common principles. Here, if you will open the Code of Ethics, you will see many, many points, and some of them maybe you will think, okay, this is for 100% people, this should be clear. But unfortunately, from our experience, we must define it somewhere that really for all of us, this should be clear. So only briefly, of course, there are those common principles as that we should, for example, respect human rights and fundamental freedoms, that we should refuse any kind of discrimination, doesn't matter on what parameter, yes, you can imagine, that we should comply with the principles of equal approach and equal opportunities, and then one point that is written there, and maybe it can be new for you, is the fact that if we have this organism where we have different members, then we think that in our academic community, those who are more experienced basically should be aware of their special responsibility for the development of their younger colleagues or their departments in general. What does it mean for you? If you are PhD students, you must be aware of your special responsibility to your younger colleagues and help them basically during their bachelor and master studies. And on the other hand, you should expect from your more experienced colleagues, your lab leaders, etc., that they also should feel this special responsibility to you. In the second part, the principles in the educational activities, you have, of course, also some points that should be, I think, clear to everybody. For example, that you should not cheat during any kind of assessment, and also you should not allow to other members to cheat. Other, I think, quite clear point is, for example, that if you assess the student achievements, you should do it with firmness and with transparency. Very important point that we will then speak about in the separate topic is the strict ban of any kinds of plagiarism. Yes, I will mention them more in detail, what we mean under the term plagiarism, but the simplest preventive mechanism is that you can cross it out, do not do it. It doesn't matter whether it's plagiarism of somebody else's work or whether it's the plagiarism of your previous work. Everything is forbidden from the position of the Code of Ethics. And the last point is the point speaking about the activities that are called contract cheating, or you can also meet the term academic ghostwriting. That means when you ask somebody else to work, to write the work instead of you, and you put there only your name, or on the other hand, if you will do the same procedure for somebody else. And typically the one who writes also asks for some amount of money. But it doesn't matter if there is this service with the money, even without money, this is forbidden in the academic community. The last part, the part about scientific, and if I simplify it, and other activities, here we have, of course, also many quite detailed definitions, what is forbidden, and on the other hand, what is allowed. So if I briefly also go through it, for example, we should comply with the principles of intellectual property, yes, and we should ensure that the results of these activities are correctly attributed. Basically, who did what in, for example, the experiment, in writing the paper, etc. About the publishing, of course, we should not publish unethically. That means, for example, we should not use various dubious platforms, yes, that we know that are unethical. And at the very end, we can mention with the relationship to the common principles about the responsibility to the younger colleagues. Here you clearly see that the people who lead the research team should basically work as the team with their younger colleagues, that they should encourage fairness and openness in the work inside the team, and that they should not misuse, for example, their authority. Yes, some authoritative approaches in the management. So you see that really from the common principles to the two main education and scientific activities principles, it's quite well established what is forbidden and what is not. So this was about the document itself, and we really encourage you to basically look at the document, and if you have questions, you can ask at the faculty or at the university if you understood it correctly. Second part related to the bodies. There are, of course, many bodies that should know what is written in the document, and then in the specific cases, these bodies must be able to say whether this one concrete case is acceptable or whether it's unacceptable. Even when sometimes we can think that the borders are clear, when you will think about it, and in some areas, real deeply think about it, you can identify that the border is more gray than black and white. We have these ethics committees at Charles University at several levels. You can find them at faculties. Some faculties have one, some faculties have more than one, yes. And about them, I think you will be informed at the faculty level. What I will be right now speaking about are those two main ethical committees that are working at the central university level and that are basically unifying basically the work on the whole university. The first, the Ethics Committee of Charles University, as I have already mentioned, was established in the year 2013 together with the Code of Ethics when it was approved. It has 7 members. It's chaired by Professor Zuzana Červinkova from the Medical Faculty in Hradec Králové. And the goal of this ethical committee is quite simple: to accept the submissions regarding the possible violations of the Code of Ethics, to study that case, and at the very end to give the final statement, whether this is acceptable or whether this is not acceptable. And it's not only about basically saying this is good and this is bad, but also we at the work of this ethics committee, we at the university set the scale, especially at those gray areas. So what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. If you want to know more about the ethics committee, I here provide you with the link to the rector's directive that defines the terms, for example, how to submit the case, yes, to this ethics committee, and also, for example, about the terms when the commission must come to the statement. Then we had the second committee at the Charles University, and as you see in the name, is about the research. So it's the Research Ethics Committee. It's slightly smaller. It has 5 members. Yes, it's all the people are coming from, of course, the different scientific background. Yes, to have some joint overview. And there are 3 main goals for this Research Ethics Committee. The first is basically to define some general policies of our university in the given area. Second, very important role is basically to issue the unifying statements for the faculty Research Ethics Committee, since many faculties have these faculty research committees, and this central committee can unify some gray areas. And the third thing is that it can issue the statements for the research proposals. For some research proposals that were mentioned, or some research programs that were mentioned by Pavel Senderák, must gain the stamp from the ethics committee. Sometimes it's enough to have it from the faculty Research Ethics Committee. Sometimes here is the Central Research Ethics Committee. And then we had the third ethics committee at our university, and that was the ethics committee for the topic of plagiarism at our university. I used it past since right now it's not working. It was temporary committee for about one and a half year, and its main work was basically to describe in detail how we should work with the plagiarism, and to finalize some strategic document how we should basically work with this area. This document was finalized in year 2019, and it was converted in shorter version to the rector's directive. You have here its number if you want to look at it. And briefly, this rector's directive, more in detail than the general codes of ethics, describes the area of plagiarism. That means what is plagiarism and what is not plagiarism, since sometimes also this is gray rather than white and black. Also, how should be the cases, yes, or the suspicion on plagiarism assessed, yes, so what steps we must do and what we should not neglect. And the last was the recommendations for the plagiarism prevention, what all the faculties should adopt inside their activities. So with this, I will come to the third part, so to the examples of the violations of the academic and research integrity. And as you see, it was quite simple what to start with when I finished with the ethics committee for plagiarism. So right now, we can look what is the result of the work of that committee. First of all, it's important to mention, and I hope that all of you know that something as the plagiarism exists, that the plagiarism is one of the most common unethical behavior that you can meet in the academic community. Yes, it's one of the most common violations against the rules and principles of the academic and research ethics. And if you will do it, then basically nobody will forgive it. Yes, so really you must know what is it. You should not do it, and also you should know the preventive mechanism how to avoid it. If you will put the term plagiarism inside the Google, I think that you will find many definitions, and it's not necessary to know all the definitions, but it's, I think, enough to understand the simple principle that the plagiarism simply means that you will take someone else's work or ideas and you will present them as your own work. That's plagiarism, and then if we expand it to the auto-plagiarism, it means the same thing applying to your own previously published work. That means if you use someone else's work, you must cite correctly. Yes, you must write, yes, this I have taken from somebody else. If you will present it that it's your idea without proper and accurate quotation, it's your problem and it's plagiarism. There are many forms of plagiarism, and simply it doesn't matter whether it's the most, if I use the bad word, stupid copy-paste plagiarism, so somebody takes the text, picture, graph from somebody else's work and put it copy-paste to his or her work without a proper and accurate citation, or if there is some work, for example, the rewarding paraphrasing of somebody else's work and putting it inside your work, or if you basically steal only the idea, or for example, short mathematical formula, and you build the whole work on it, but the idea is not yours, yes? And the text can be yours, but the idea or the mathematical formula is not yours, and the fact that you will only comment it, it's not enough. We at Charles University, of course, think not only about the prevention, but also about restriction. So we think that it's quite good from our side to inform you from the very beginning that we control the works that you will submit to us, all final works. For the seminar works, it's typically at the decision of the teacher, but many teachers do it. And we use two systems, the national system thesis, provided by one other university of our republic, and we combine it with the international system Turnitin, or you can know it also under the term Authenticate, yes. And with the combination of these two systems, we think we can basically detect the originality of the work quite well. Yes, why do we use two systems? It's quite, it's not simply to explain, but it's the combination of the sources, since some national sources are not generally public. But we do not want to use these systems only in the restrictive matter. We use the Turnitin Feedback Studio also for helping you to learn the academic writing. So we combine these restrictive mechanisms with the preventive approach. And many teachers use the Turnitin Feedback Studio in the classes of academic writing. When they ask the students to write the academic text, they will put it inside the Turnitin Feedback Studio, and then the students see the results, see the comments of the teachers, or sometimes the teachers use the peer-to-peer review system, so your colleagues will basically assess the work for you, yes? So, if you can really use these systems also in the preventive matter to learn the methodology of the academic writing. Now, some more advices, some brief advices how you can prevent the plagiarism. So the first, learn the academic teaching, the academic writing. Use, for example, the Turnitin Feedback Studio with your teachers in the respective classes dedicated to the methodology of academic writing. Second, and very simple advice is, if you are asked to do something, for example, to write the final work, and you should write your final PhD thesis, then you should at least know from the very beginning how many pages you are expected to write, yes? And then to know only the pages is not enough, but then you also should know what is the average amount of time it should take you. Since one of the main reasons when it was studied, what leads the individuals to the plagiarism was simply the lack of time, yes? If you look at the questionnaires, what the students answered is, I do expect that the diploma work should be 40 pages and I am able to write it in 1 week. Yes, maybe it is 40 pages in some study programs, but you are not able to do it in 1 week. Yes, so really from the very beginning, know what you are expected to do, and then you should also ask what is the average time. Yes, of course there can be some student who can do it in 2 weeks. There are some other students who can do it in 4 months, but you should be able to identify what is the average amount of time. Yes, and do not overestimate your skills. Yes. Third simple advice is communicate, communicate, and communicate with your peers, with your supervisors. We are here to help you, but you must come to us and tell us that you have the problem. Or if we ask you whether you have the problem, you should not be shy to tell it to us. So really communicate with the supervisor regularly if you write the PhD thesis. And if there is the problem with the communication with the supervisor, there is somebody who should also oversee the supervisor. Fourth and very simple advice is that you should not be shy, that you do not know how to, for example, write academic text or simply how to quote properly, since of course, there are some norms how you should do it. Do not feel that you are alone, and do not say that you are an idiot, that you do not know it. First, you are not alone, and second, you are not the idiot. There are many people around you who also do not know it. Some of them will ask, some of them won't ask, and if you do not ask, and then you have the time problems, this is very frequent reason for the plagiarism to happen. So if you do not know how to write the academic text properly, ask your colleagues, ask your supervisor, take respective courses that we provide you with, and this is the very simple way how to prevent it. And do it as soon as possible, since once the time is very close, then there are no many options, basically, how we can solve it with you. We've tried also to summarize some of the definitions, advices for both the students and the teachers inside these two handbooks. They were prepared and published last year with the help of the Central Development Project, where 9 universities of our republic joined together, basically to discuss the topic of plagiarism and, in general, unethical behavior in student works. And one of the results are these two handbooks. We have them in paper form. We have them also freely available at Univerzita Publishing House in the e-form. And at the very end of the presentation, you will have the link to both, to the student handbook and to the academic staff handbook. Yes, the student handbook is of course more tailored to the students. The academic handbook we tried more to tailor to the activities the academic staff should do. So, for example, explain how it should be, basically explain the topic to the students. But if you are interested, you can look at both, and if you have any advices for us how we can update and improve these handbooks, we will like to hear your opinion. Second type of the unethical behavior that I will mention only very briefly is the contract cheating, or as you can read about it as academic ghost writing, yes. As I've already mentioned, it's the situation when somebody asks somebody else to write the work instead of him, or if somebody provides the other people with that service, or third thing, if somebody only promotes, for example, the companies that are doing it. All these situations are forbidden, yes? To be the creator, the recipient, it doesn't matter, yes? We know that this problem is very common, yes. There are results from the whole world, how important this topic is. We also have quite new data from Czech Republic, or actual 2018, from Tomáš Foltínek and Veronika Králíková from Mendel University. Here we also have the link, if you want to read how does the situation in our republic looks like, but it's around the world very same. Yes, it's the business for the companies who are providing this service, and even when somebody thinks, you know, they will do the work instead of me, I will gain the diploma and I'm okay. So those people should be aware of the fact that many of these companies 10 years after the providing somebody with the work start to blackmail that individual. Hi, maybe somebody should be interested in the fact that you gained your diploma in an unethical way. So first, it is bad, and second, it's prevention from being blackmailed. The handbook about this topic we are right now working and finalizing, and it will be published at the very end of this year. And if you will look at the website of our publishing house, the Carolinum Publishing House, you will see it also at the very end of this year, at the December. It's a new handbook for the students. And for the very last, since the time that we had for this presentation was very limited, and as I have mentioned, there are many documents and many courses about it. I want here to introduce to you one of the options how you can look slightly more deeper in the topic, and that's the MOOC, Massive Open Online Course, that we prepared for you with the help of our colleagues from Utrecht University and Ljubljana University in the Erasmus Plus Strategic Partnership course. That here you have the link. It's the Massive Open Online Course, so you can freely register to it. And if you will go through it, you will basically go not only to the topics of plagiarism and contract cheating, but from the very beginning of the terms of the academic research integrity, why it's so important, to the critical situations that you should be aware of. Also how to react on this situation, since one of the reasons for this project was that we want the people to be streetwise, is really to know how to react in the situation, and then of course some more materials for the study. So really, if you have time, and as you have heard, right now you have time. If you think that in future it will be better, not. Right now you have time. So you can look at the webpage, and if you are interested, you can register. From my side, this is everything. If you have any question, I'm here to answer them. If not, then I wish you all the best. And as you know, keep calm and finish your PhD in ideal way in 4 or 5 years. Thank you for your attention. Question? Yes. That needs to be answered.
2 questions, actually.
2 questions.
So one thing you mentioned about academic ghostwriting. Well, I'm very aware that's not okay if you don't give credits, but especially for papers, can you do something like that if you do give credits to your person in a way that one person is doing a lot of research that's not very good at writing? Can they then work together with someone else who's good at writing but not at research? Mm-hmm. Like, where is the line there? Is if you quote the person who does the writing, if you put them as an author, mm-hmm. then does that become okay, or how does that work exactly?
Yes, typically if, for example, what you are mentioning, that somebody is working on the topic, and then somebody helps with writing the publication, but more in the language matter, basically. Then if you put that person in acknowledgement and you basically explain that it was basically, the language was facilitated by native speaker, that is okay, but you must basically address that person openly. The problem in the contract cheating is that if you will put it inside the web page, I need diploma thesis in 2 weeks, there will be many companies who you will send only the topic and they should provide you with the final work. First, the final work should not be of the quality you expect. Second, it is totally bad. So there's a problem. What you are speaking about, it's quite normal situation. If you put the proper, basically, description of the case with the name, what was the activity, then it's okay.
Then the second question was that I was a little bit confused about the auto-plagiarism, where you can't plagiarize your own work. How exactly would you plagiarize your own work? Because you can't really steal credit from yourself, can you? Mm-hmm. How exactly then?
You can imagine it that you are a student starting with bachelor, then master, and the PhD, and you are not doing in the PhD the new topic, but you are only basically expanding the topic from the BA, and you take the literary review from the BA level, and you copy-paste it to your PhD. You know, I am right now using really the concrete and very simple cases. That's, for example, the thing. You wrote it 7 years ago, for example, or 8 years ago, and you, without anything, do it copy-paste. Of course, that was one reason why we, at the Committee for the Plagiarism, have to discuss it, what precisely it is, since, of course, you cannot start for 20 years studying some field. That's true, but if you basically transfer some relevant parts from your previous work, there is no problem in basically quoting it correctly. Yes, this was already published, and I built on my previous experiments that you read in the articles very frequently. But typically for the student level and PhD level with the auto-plagiarism is basically taking huge parts of the theoretic part of the PhD thesis from the previous works. That's the simplest example.
Question about professional proofreading. Is it expected of dissertation to be professionally proofread by these type of agencies?
What do you mean by those type of agencies?
So there are proofreaders who provide services for English language or any other language, right?
You know, if you write that it was done so, for example, for the native speaker, and if you put it inside the thesis, it's okay. Yes, you know, of course, you know, here is precisely the barrier when it's ethical, when it's unethical. It depends whether the original work was written by you and then somebody helped you with the commas. Of course, that's not the original scientific work. Yes, that's for the presentation. But it's very good then in the section of acknowledgement to write this was happening with the text, and also to be able to provide for the future what was really your own text and what that happened with the proofreading. That is the safest option. Yes, and of course the proofreaders, for example, should not modify the result section.
Not content, just grammar.
Yes.
Or punctuation.
Yes, that is typically the people do. Yes. Okay, any further questions? If not, then thank you for your attention.
So, my second appearance marks the end of our session. I would like to thank all the previous speakers to share their field of expertise with us. Our aim was to increase your awareness about the rights and duties and also options you have in your doctoral study in order to make you informative choices, especially in the beginning of your studies. We do all understand there are a lot of things to tackle, a lot of information, but don't worry, it will just. All the academic staff you're going to meet were in your shoes, so they are also really open to discussion. They would really like to help you. And the main aim from us to you to know is to just don't be afraid to ask. Again, not just about the research of yours, but also about the organizational things, because everything was solved in time will just prevent any future problems regarding the issues. So we wish you good luck with your studies and to just strive to the aims of your research you have right in the beginning right now. All the presentations you saw, all the registered person will get on your email. And the program of this event, of this Welcome Day for International Students goes on. So if you like, you can continue to the main hall for some light beverage and social program. So again, thank you and good luck.